The first place we're going is Beaujolais in France. Beaujolais is technically part of the region of Burgundy, but for all intents and purposes, people treat it differently. It's this area in white here at the southern end of this map right here. Beaujolais, it's like I said, it's technically the southern part of Burgundy. If you get a red wine from Beaujolais, the grape is going to be Gamay. That's pretty much the only red grape they grow there. And if you get a white Beaujolais, which aren't real common, but I've had a couple and they're really tasty. If you ever have one, try one. They're not all that expensive and they're really tasty. You're going to have a Chardonnay. As we talked about before, if you get wines from Europe, they're more often than not named after the place they grow, not necessarily the grape that's in them. So if you get a white Beaujolais, it's going to be a Chardonnay. And there's you're going to see for all the regions we're going through, there's like a quality pyramid or a quality chart. In Beaujolais, the top of the pyramid are the 10 crus of Beaujolais. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Underneath is what we're having tonight is a Beaujolais Village. There's 38 growing areas within Beaujolais. They've got a little better terroir or growing conditions. And if you grow grapes in one of those areas, you can call your wine a Beaujolais Village. They generally mix multiple villages, but if you grow everything in one village, you can actually put the village name on your bottle. And then you have regular Beaujolais, which comes from the rest of the area. A lot of you have probably heard of Beaujolais Nouvea. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute as well. Beaujolais, the grapes that you use for Beaujolais Nouvea can come from either the areas that make Beaujolais Village or just regular Beaujolais. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So that's sort of the quality hierarchy for Beaujolais wines. Crus Beaujolais, they start at about $20 and they can go up from there. There are 10 crus or 10 areas that are listed here on this particular map right here. Those have the optimum growing conditions, and those are really good complex wines. And because they're good complex wines, they don't include the word Beaujolais on the label. As you're going to learn in a minute, Beaujolais Nouvea is a really simple, easy drinking wine. A lot of people like use it to party, or they don't take it seriously. And the people and the growers in these 10 crus make really good, serious wines. And people weren't taking it seriously because they had the word Beaujolais, which they thought this was this light, fruity wine on the label. So if you get one of the crus, you're going to see you're only going to see the name of the village. You're not going to see the word Beaujolais on the label, but they're absolutely wonderful wines. The four areas that are most available are Moulin à Vent. It's concentrated fruit and tannin. You can drink it now or it can be aged. There's another area, Morgan, which is another more concentrated and tannic area. And then if you want a little lighter, easier drinking wines, you can get a wine from Brouet or a Fleury. And there's the other villages too, but these are the ones that you'll find. Some of the other villages or areas are really hard to get. So if you see one of these names on a bottle of wine, it's one of the Crus Beaujolais from Beaujolais. Next level is Beaujolais Village and Beaujolais. Beaujolais Village, you can usually get this for between 10 and 20 bucks. It's grown in one of 39 villages in Beaujolais, and those villages are recognized by all the pink areas on this map here. The vineyards are on rolling hills. Like I said earlier, usually it's a mix of multiple villages, but if it's only one village, the name can appear. It's light and fruity with a bit more structure than Beaujolais. Structure means maybe a little more alcohol, maybe a little more complexity, might be a touch more tannin and that sort of thing. That's what we mean by structure. And you can serve that lightly chilled as well. And Beaujolais, the base Beaujolais, it's grown in any of the green areas here. It's the flattest vineyards, probably has, they're not bad growing conditions, but probably has the least optimal growing conditions. It's light and fruity and can be lightly chilled as well. So that's the different story before in Beaujolais. And then you have Beaujolais Nouvea. It's between 10 and 12 bucks. It's inexpensive, called the world's fastest wine. It's bottled between 6 and 8 weeks of harvest. So it doesn't have a lot of time to ferment or macerate or do anything. They basically squeeze the grapes and put them in the bottle. And because of that, that's why, like I said earlier, the Crus wanted to distance themselves a little bit from Beaujolais Nouvea. It's made for immediate consumption. You don't want to age it. It won't stay good for a long period of time. It cannot be released. You can't start selling it until the 3rd Thursday of November. That's why, especially in the United States, a lot of people associate Beaujolais Nouvea with Thanksgiving because it comes out just before Thanksgiving. And amazingly enough, it goes pretty well with Thanksgiving dinner and that sort of thing. So, and on the other side of it, because we says it doesn't age, it cannot be sold after the next August 31st. So you have what, that's like a 9-10 month window to sell the stuff. In reality, it sells out pretty quickly. I doubt if most retailers will have any Beaujolais Nouvea in stock after the first of the year. So in about 6-8 weeks, it pretty well sells out all the time. Like I said, it's very light and fruity, and it can also be served lightly chilled. A process that Beaujolais goes through that's different than other wines, they go through a process called carbonic maceration. They ferment the grapes differently. Most grapes are crushed. If you've ever been to a winery, and you'll see as it's fermenting, the grapes are sitting in the middle of all of their crushed grape skins and everything. With carbonic maceration, the grapes are not crushed and soaked with the skins. What happens is the whole uncrushed bunches are put into a closed vat. That's the diagram on the bottom here. The vats are filled with CO2, and that starts the grapes fermenting within the grape skins. So while it's fermenting, it's not having any contact with the outside of the grape skins, where the wine gets a lot of its color and a lot of its tannin. This causes, like I said, fermentation to occur within the grape. And once the alcohol level in the grape reaches about 2%, the grape skins crack, and then the juice slowly goes over the outside of the grape skins of the other grapes as the juice goes on. So you pick up a lot of color, but not a lot of tannin from that. And eventually it all crushes upon themselves, but before it gets to ferment too much, they lightly press it, drain the juice, and this process causes the wine to get the color from the skins, but like minimizes the tannin. That's why it's a sort of a light and easy drinking red wine. A lot of people that don't like red wine kind of use Beaujolais. It's sort of like a gateway red wine to get people hooked on red wine and that sort of thing. Like we said earlier, the primary grape is Gamay. It's early budding and ripening. You get flavors of raspberry, cherry, bubblegum. Bubblegum's a very common descriptor for Gamay. It's got a floral aroma. It grows like weeds, and it pairs well with a variety of food.